welcome back to the 67th round of VVV Gaming's The Losers Bracket podcast. Got some really interesting subjects for you today. We're going to start things off here in just a second with MLG and GSL's groundbreaking league exchange program that they have started. We've also got a really special interview later in the episode with one of our own co-hosts. Stay tuned for that. It's really cool. Going to have tons of really great information in the interview. This new news that just came out this week, though, Major League Gaming, the South Korean GSL, two, of course, big competitive venues for StarCraft 2. They've created this exchange program for players, Korean players coming to America, American players going to Korea. This is absolutely huge news. We've got, of course, co-host Jerry, LordJerith Prohaska here, and our StarCraft 2 manager, VVV Roar. Roar, I want to get your opinion on this first things first as we're starting off here. What are your thoughts on this program?
Well, for starters, what's to hate? I mean, everyone wants to be Korean in terms of StarCraft 2. I think everyone has this fad going around where if you don't listen to K-pop, you're never going to be good. I know the StarCraft 2 community here, you can see like 8 to 10 people in Mumble staying up till 3 or 4 in the morning to watch GSL finals, even though, spoiler, they sucked. But I mean, this is great. 4 Koreans coming over to MLG. I mean, this would be amazing. I think it's going to draw in a bigger crowd. Talk about stream numbers. You're going to get Koreans involved. You're going to get Americans involved. I mean, all over the world, everyone's just going to be, it's going to be insane. It's going to be insane.
I don't really have much more to add. Obviously, it's good, but I did see a couple tweets that caught my attention. Somebody said, why is StarCraft 2 getting all this attention? Or what's so special about StarCraft 2? And I thought, wow, I'm not sure where to even begin with that question. But for those who may be listening and aren't getting why StarCraft 2 is probably the largest and most important game to hit competitive gaming in a very long time, and why this news is so important, it allows us to have a partnership with really an online gaming empire. I mean, let's be honest, South Korea dominates online gaming. They have amazing players, and this is our opportunity to get the top players, some of the top players, to come over here, and it gives us an opportunity to send some of our players over there. There's an amazing opportunity for those players, and we get to see in real life when we attend events who these players are, how they conduct themselves, and watch their gameplay. And we get to do it with, I would say, 4 of the best commentators in StarCraft. And I think that's fantastic. So I agree with Roar. What's there to hate, really? I think it's fantastic news. Good job to Sundance, and I think the timing's right. Because I think with South Korea having, well, let's just say a certain love still for Brood War, this was a really good approach, and I think this particular point, they were the most likely to say yes and do this, and they have, and I think it's a win for everyone.
As Jerry had just mentioned, he had said 4 commentators. In case you haven't heard, additionally, in this GSL exchange program that has started for MLG Columbus and onward, not only will we have DJ Wheat and Day 9 doing commentary at the event, Tasteless and Artosis will be coming over from South Korea to join them doing commentary. Additionally, MLG is adding a second stream for StarCraft to MLG Columbus and beyond. This is absolutely huge news. I would definitely say that StarCraft 2 is the closest thing that we have to competitive gaming breaking through to the mainstream here currently in North America.
You know, Jason, I completely agree. I mean, like, if MLG is able to live up and provide a better stream than they did last time, which I'm all for, I really hope they do hit it this time, and they hit it big. Because, I mean, having these 2 streams, myself, I have 2 monitors. If I wasn't going to Columbus myself, I would have both streams up running constantly, seeing what action is going on. Like you stated, you have probably the 2 best casting duos out there. Day 9 and DJ Wheat do an amazing job, and I'm very proud to announce that they are going to have soundproof booths at MLG. So you'll constantly be hearing them cast at Columbus. It's going to be amazing. I'm so pumped for it. And then you have Taste Hostess, which is just going to be nonstop amazing action too. And you might even get a little bit of a mix of both casting duos going at it together. So, I mean, it's going to be so awesome. I'm just so excited. can't even put my words together, but I'm amazingly pumped for this. It's going to be so great.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see Day9 and Tasteless, the brothers, cast something together. There's just a lot of great energy that can happen here, and I think that, again, Major League Gaming has delivered. I mean, it's been a great season despite the stream problems, considering all the scope of changes that Major League Gaming has made. It's fantastic news.
I personally think we can all agree there are huge things in the works for competitive gaming as a whole. As I had mentioned before, I really feel like StarCraft 2 is right there on the edge of breaking the mainstream here in North America. And while we are on that subject, I'd really like to mention this article that made the rounds on the internet this past week, went live on May 13th. Really good article. I'm going to link it in the podcast thread on vvvgaming.com. If you haven't had the chance to take a look at it, the name of the article is "The Real Reason Esports Can't Go Mainstream Anytime Soon." Guys, have you had the chance to take a look at this article? I think it was a really good read.
All right, let me start by saying this. If I were to say this article may not have the perfect logic, but it captures the spirit of what is a huge problem in quote-unquote esports. This is something I've personally commented on, and I cannot tell you how happy and refreshed I was for someone who can write, has a good sense of humor, and a little bit of a bite to just call it the way he sees it. Read the comments, some people pointing out that sports fans fight and stuff like that, and gaming is slightly unique, but it is a problem, and I think it's definitely worth tackling.
To give a quick overview of what this article says, it says, hey guys, what we really need in competitive gaming is to open up, to talk nicer to the people that aren't pro players. He gives this really great analogy. To read verbatim from the article, it says, ever go to a sports bar on Super Bowl Sunday or sit around talking football with your cousins at a barbecue? $10 says conversations like this don't pop up. Did you see that pass? Manning is amazing. I can't believe that play isn't more... Dude, shut the fuck up. Have you ever played football competitively? Even in the minor leagues? I bet you didn't even play on the high school team. The author of this article makes a very good point here. If you go on to, say, Team Liquid's website when they're talking about StarCraft, the very elitist mindset of, dude, what league are you in? You're only in silver? Your opinion doesn't count. We are going to need to break through this to make gaming a little bit more mainstream. We are very lucky today to actually have the author of this article with us here on the show. I'd like to introduce everybody to the author of this amazing article. His name on the website, WiNGSPANTT, real name John. John, welcome to the show. How are you tonight?
I'm great, and I wouldn't say you're lucky to have me because my article here was posted on Friday the 13th and took my website down, so if it seems anything to me, it'd be pretty bad luck. But I will do my best to entertain and answer any questions you guys have and maybe discuss this topic in a little more depth.
Well, John, no good deed goes unpunished, and that was what happened with your website. But, I mean, going down because of traffic is not a horrible reason to go down. I think that's in some ways positive. But, of course, I was scrolling down to the bottom to see who you're hosting it with, and I thought, well, maybe for, I don't really know your host, so maybe they didn't see it as kindly. But go back to May 13th when you posted this, whenever you wrote this. What made you, on this particular day when you wrote this, go, I've had enough, I'm going to talk about this?
Yeah, there was no specific thing. Well, actually, that's not true. All right, so I don't want to plug my site, but I'm going to plug my site. So toptiertactics.com. I started this site as my personal blog, but I've gotten other writers to come along. And one of the writers, this guy, he goes by Space Hamlet on the site, Josh. He is really into competitive games. He's really into the tournament scene of a lot of fighting games. He's really into Virtua Fighter, which he's always extolling as the most tactical fighting game. And he said to me, I really wanted to get in StarCraft 2. It seems like everyone's into StarCraft 2, but I've never played an RTS in my life. I basically told him, well, good luck, And he bought the game, he jumped online, and I've played StarCraft since the original StarCraft, and I'm not great or anything, but, reliving, his vicariously living through his pain of trying to get into the community and trying to get into this made me think about it a little bit more. And I do frequent a lot of forums, But, I guess I wouldn't really consider myself to be either on the low tier person getting yelled at or the high tier screaming at people. But I guess I see those interactions happen a lot, and it just made me want to write about it.
One thing that a lot of gamers that I know say is that, we have this logical fallacy that occurs, right? That somehow the quality of your ideas is tied into how well you play a game, which, is ridiculous. I can't think of any other place where anyone would put that emphasis on something. You don't have to be a top football player to be excellent at analyzing football. Let me ask this question. What game have you played where you feel this was the least problem? What was the best community you ran into?
The best game community? I see. I'm hesitant to say Team Fortress 2 because overall that's true, but what's now become basically the competitive TF2 community, they're not standoffish, but there's a sense of a divide. So maybe Team Fortress 2. I feel like while the competitive community plays the game under a lot of different rules than the general pub scene, they're always trying to recruit. They're always trying to welcome people in and explain, the differences and how they play and what mods and what settings they use. And I've seen a lot of articles about, how Team Fortress 2 has a very welcoming community overall. And maybe it's just because the game's a little cartoony, so people just don't take it as seriously when they're not getting, teabagged and shot in the head and decapitated and stuff like that. Okay, they are getting decapitated, but that would probably be the case.
Let's talk about people's reaction. What has been the reaction to your article, both good and bad?
The most bad reaction is the kind of flaming bullshit that I talked about in the article. If you even just look at my comments, this article got reposted on like Team Liquid and SRK and a lot of the kind of places that I mentioned here. A lot of like, oh, this guy's, even just on GameFAQs right now, I saw on StarCraft, someone posted this article and the first response was Bronze League confirmed. So I guess that's the worst response. I think the best response is just a lot of people saying like, hey, look, even if you don't agree with every single thing in the article, I think no one could disagree with like, can't we just all be a little bit nicer? Can we just be nice to people? Like, just a little bit, just basic human decency.
To talk about that first group of people that you had mentioned before, I just have to throw this quote in here because I really loved it from the article. You had said an example of, geez, wouldn't it be cool if queens were massive units to counter force fields? Wouldn't it be cool if you could shut the fuck up, Bronze League moron? That's awesome. Great writing, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And I would like to address something with that. And I know, Jerry, you had mentioned like, oh, well, and this is based on being on Team Liquid now after this article's been up and seeing other things. Like, I definitely understand why people get mad at comments like this queen thing. Like, I've seen that exact thing posted on Team Liquid a lot of times. Like, queens should be massive. No, they shouldn't. Yes, they should. No, they shouldn't. And of course, like, people get mad because if they feel like if Blizzard caters to this opinion and they just change queens to massive, it could ruin, the balance of the game or ruin the tournament scene. And that's a legitimate concern, but I guess I just think that discussion should be had without, amity on discussion forums, or maybe it's possible, isn't that why the PTR exists, to try things out? And I think that was definitely a good move by Blizzard. I know Team Fortress 2 also has a beta where they test out this stuff, so they can test crazy stuff. And if someone said, "Oh, let's make Archons massive" 2 months ago, they might have got laughed off a forum. But hey, Archons are massive now, so who knows? Who knows how it'll work out? I guess that's the point of testing and thoughtful discussion.
Yeah, to be fair, I think that I don't expect better now. I guess I'm kind of cynical. I kind of know that people are going to say things that don't deal with the idea. I've always gone by the sort of idea that, small minds talk about people, average mind talk about events, and great minds talk about ideas. So if you have an idea about, something in StarCraft and then someone attacks you as a person, that's just, to me, really small-minded. Let's deal with the idea. And you do get this insecurity, and I think it's part of nerd culture. Like, a lot of nerds go overboard when they disagree with something. I don't know what it is, but so many people feel they have to, yell louder, or they have to, put things in bold, and it's got to be multicolored. And at the end of the day, it really doesn't, to me, affect the quality of the idea, which is what is important. And I've always been one that if someone's wrong, the best way to help them understand they're wrong is ask them questions that lead them to the right answer. Right? There is a technique by which if somebody says, I think it should be like this, you're like, oh, why do you think that? And you say, well, what other aspects of the game will it affect? Do you think it would affect this? Just keep asking questions until you get a good, deep understanding of where that person's coming from, and it will also be a lot easier to point out their flaws. Instead of that massive, you're wrong, you're crazy, don't ruin the game I love, how dare you, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely think that's a good way to bring someone around to your side or to try to get them to think about some, challenging issues. And I think part of what this making this article made me realize, just reading through a lot of comments, is that I feel like these issues are a little different depending on the genre. Like, maybe not totally, but people go into I've seen in forums, like, people go in a fighting game, like, who's the best character? Or they go in an RTS forum and be like, what's the best unit? And that seems like a dumb question, right? But maybe if you play a lot of like competitive first-person shooters, a lot of shooting games aren't really that balanced. They said, what's the best gun? In Counter-Strike, you'd be like, oh, it's the AWP. There's no question about that. It's the best gun. Like, there's a couple of guns that are terrible and a couple of guns that are really good. And a lot of times, like, people who are new, it's not that they're terrible at gaming overall, but they come from maybe a different genre or a different background where they have preconceived notions. And it's not that, oh, LOL, I want to go to I want to go to EVO because I picked Ryu because everyone said he's the best. But maybe it's just because, the games that they came from, that's how things work.
You have a very good point there. There are certain gaming communities, different genres, that will have different outlooks. For example, my background, I come from rhythm gaming. A lot of the competitions, there is just an unreal amount of camaraderie between the players in each of the events. I've said this example before on the show, but there was a match that I had, the World Cyber Games Nationals, with one of VVV's own now, the world champion currently from World Cyber Games, VVV Asai 28, where he beat me by 1/25th of one note. And afterwards, neither of us had missed a note in the song, and I lost. I was eliminated from the tournament, but I still got up and shook his hand and gave him a hug, and that's how every event is with rhythm gamers. So yeah, it really depends on which background I suppose you come from. Smash Brothers, for another example. Man, you should see those guys at an event. What energy that they pop into an event. So yeah, I could definitely see where you're coming from. Each different genre definitely has a completely different mindset to it.
Yeah, definitely. And here's the thing, right? So I, I'm running this site and I write about the games I play, and I have a full-time job. I know a lot of people don't, and maybe like they just decided like I'm going to be the best at one game, and I guess I feel like I have a commitment to play a lot of different games just so I have different things to write about, so people don't come online and read about Assassin's Creed Brotherhood every single day. But I think that's part of it too. I think there's a lot of people who like to jump in, and like for me, me, my brother, some other people I play with, like, oh, we want to get in this game and get to the second highest rank in the game, and that'll be good enough for us. And do I have the time to read every single guide that's made? No, but I still want to learn. Like, I still glad to have learned like, oh, how all the different frame data works in Street Fighter, and understanding how it impacts the kind of combos you can pull off and things like that. But I think a lot of players are spread out in that way, and I think one thing I wanted to point out in the article that I feel like flew over some people's heads just based on the comments. Let's say where there's this future where esports or competitive gaming is a little more mainstream, even if it's just not like mainstream, more mainstream in gaming in general. There's going to be a larger and larger percentage of people who are watching or following along who are not good at the game at all, who may not even play the game. The same way that, like had Jerry said before, you watch football, you may not be good at football, you may not even play it anymore, you may not have even played it as a kid. And I think those people are going to have they're going to want a slice of the pie of discussion. And right now, as many people brought up in comments, like, unlike football, right? Like, if I went to ESPN and joined the forums, well, guess what? Like, the NFL quarterbacks aren't sitting around these forums all day to make fun of people who come online. There's this divide between who the pros are and who the casuals are. But in esports, there pretty much is no divide because everyone has a common meeting ground on the internet. And I don't know what the best solution for that is. I know some places like Team Liquid have set aside certain parts of the forum that you can only go to if you're like vetted as being, a professional gamer. I know some other communities have done that, but I think part of that will be a persistent problem. You're going to have the high tier players, the low tier players, and people who aren't players, the people who are hobbyists or just spectators who don't really play the game. And how is that going to be resolved? I don't really know.
Well, I mean, I think that, there's nothing wrong with people having opinions. And I mean, opinions are just that. And I don't think everyone's opinion, requires this kind of vitriolic reaction. I make fun of former Gears of War pros on Twitter, and all of a sudden, I hate the Gears of War community, and they're viciously upset at me. That in some ways, oh my God, I said this horrible thing. And, I think lighten up, get over yourself. It's not a big deal. But there is a lot of sensitivity in the space, like people that are very insecure and sensitive. And it's days like that when I see that kind of insecurity and sensitivity and this dramatic reaction, I think to myself, you may not realize it, but you are kind of fitting the stereotype of a nerd. I mean, if I went into a forum I'm sure countless of people come into forums and say things like, when Tom Brady wins a Super Bowl, the next day somebody's saying, Tom Brady sucks. Right? I can't imagine 90 people being like, let's get all upset and angry, because it's not worth convincing the guy who's obviously wrong that the Super Bowl winning quarterback is a bad quarterback. I mean, it's not worth it, right? It's not worth the energy or the effort. Whereas here, there always seems to be the constant fuel on the fire. I think part of that's because we're dealing with young people, and they definitely will keep engaging in a subject even when that should have been, placed to rest a long time ago. So it's much easier to throw fuel on the fire and keep it burning on the internet, especially with the young population, than you would probably, in the broader sports world where you have a lot more adults involved, a lot more maturity.
I agree. I think that is part of it, not just the general youth of the community, but also just the fact that it is on the internet. And a lot of people pointed out on different forums like, oh, well, go to ESPN.com or, go to SportsCenter forums or anything like that. And people are total assholes there. But then someone's like, well, name a place on the internet where people aren't total assholes. And I guess that's pretty much true. It's kind of like, these communities, like, yeah, you can go to a live, I can go to a real baseball game. I can go to a real hockey game. I can go to a real golf outing. And talk to people, and people are going to be civilized because for the most part, no one wants to cross the barrier where the person next to you is just going to like punch you in the face. But esports doesn't really have that, or they do, but there's no stadium set up, at least in the United States, for that kind of venue. So we only have the internet, and the internet has its kind of inborn vitriol that's just included in it. And it would be cool if there's some kind of events that they're more accessible to the general community to kind of foster the kind of the niceties that go along with real life interaction.
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage you if you get a chance to attend a Major League Gaming event. I think that will help a lot because even people who say stuff, on the internet, when they arrive in person, they tend to, be very nice to your face. They lose that bravado they had on the internet. They lose that edge, and they all of a sudden, their sort of humanity creeps in, and they have to be decent human beings. So, I think the more LAN events we have, the better we're going to see that. But I would encourage you. You said before we came on air, you said you were in the New Jersey area, right?
That's right. The most lovable state in the union.
That's the first one that comes to my mind, let me tell you. But Columbus is coming up June 3rd to the 5th, which is a drive for you, I guess. Then North Carolina is going to be the next place. And then Providence, Rhode Island will be at the end of the season. So within a reasonable distance, I suppose, Providence. I don't know about Raleigh, North Carolina or Columbus for you, but I mean, I think it really would be worth it for you to go to an MLG event.
Yeah, no, that would definitely be great. I'd love to go. And I mean, I go to like local Street Fighter events and stuff like that, but it would be cool to go to a larger scale event like that. It sounds like all the MLG events are staying just outside the range of the New Jersey radiation cloud. That's, whatever, 700 miles around or so. But, I think that's something that could be overcome.
Well, they used to be at Meadowlands. They used to be where they started off the season for a long time, but they kind of outgrew it in a way. So the Meadowlands Convention Center there, so they moved elsewhere.
But there's a new Meadowlands. Well, kind of, but it got. No, I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, I think they are New York based, and I think they need to spread their wings a little bit. And I think it makes sense to me why they're in Raleigh, Columbus. And again, Providence, Rhode Island is a great place. That's not that far from you.
No, that's not that bad. I just drove up to Montreal 2 weeks ago, so it's certainly doable.
Well, John, considering that you did just do that drive, I really hope that you get the chance to drive out to one of these MLG events and meet up with us at some point this season. I know I can speak for the other co-hosts here in saying that I'd love to meet you in person. Let me say it one more time. That was a great article that you had written. I really want to thank you for coming by the Losers Bracket this week and sharing your thoughts on gaming overall. Perhaps we can get you back in the future, and I'd love to see some more of your articles, so make sure you link them to us. We'd love to put them up on the site.
Awesome, great. Well, it's been a pleasure to be here with you guys. Definitely look forward to that. Hope I can make it out to an MLG event, and I'd definitely like to work with you guys in the future.
And before we let you go, we want to give you an opportunity to do any shout-outs. And please, one more time, plug your website.
I'd like to shout out to Bluehost Hosting, which is the worst hosting service on the internet. Thank you so much, Bluehost, for suspending my account for getting hit by Reddit's front page. As for my actual website, it's toptiertactics.com. A little tongue-in-cheek pretentious, but it's just a gaming site where strategy and satire cross swords, as we say. Shout out to all my writers. Shout out to Reddit. Thank you, guys. And, of course, shout out to you guys for having me on here.
Our next guest this week, honestly, he isn't really much of a guest at all. He's my co-host here on the Losers Bracket. You all know him, but I want to set the stage for this man that you hear every week. But let's go a little bit more in depth first. Starting in 2007, LordJerith brought together the iconic Gears of War team VVV Vision. He personally coached them and kept them together for almost the entire MLG season. LordJerith would then go on to expand VVV into virtually every genre of video game, picking me up along the way for rhythm gaming, by the way. Not to mention, he then helped grow a huge PC division and led VVV to becoming the most accomplished console organization in the world. For the sake of time, let's fast forward to just this past year. VVV Gaming now contributes weekly to the Chicago Tribune's Geek to Me blog, which now gives VVV writers and bloggers access to a major city's readership. He then also created and helped launch this podcast, The Losers Bracket, and supported the creation of the Brawl VVV podcast, which would be Directional Influence. Just in September of last year, LordJerith wrote an open letter to Major League Gaming that started a dialogue between VVV and MLG, resulting in huge improvements to MLG events. Personally, through VVV Gaming, LordJerith has invested tens of thousands of dollars to sponsoring teams, running contests, building relationships, not to mention maintaining a site that gets over 30,000 unique visitors every month. I personally have worked with LordJerith for 2 years now. I know he is demanding, opinionated, has a wickedly sharp sense of humor, and tells people exactly what he thinks and how he feels. The man is irreverent to the status quo in gaming, always has a method to his madness, and often reveals that he is one step ahead of his critics. Love you or hate you, Jerry, there is no doubt that you are one of the most influential people here in North American esports. It's my personal pleasure for our listeners to present to you Jerry Prohaska, who is aptly named LordJerith.
Wow, that is quite the introduction, Jason. Thank you very much. I was reading on Twitter today, somebody said, what has he done for competitive gaming? And I didn't respond because I didn't think it was worth answering. But now that I hear my resume read back to me, I feel good about that. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It has honestly been a wild journey this past 67 episodes that we have done this show together now. And you've actually taught me quite a bit over this time. So let's get into a little bit of what's going on in the current competitive gaming scene. I'd really love to get some of your opinions, your viewpoints on what is going on in the world of gaming right now. So with the current state that competitive gaming is in, we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but currently, what do you think are some of the ways that a player who is looking to step into this field would take, what are some steps they could take to getting sponsored? Is it necessary anymore that a player has, X number of tournament wins or beats a specific person in the game that they play? What should they do when they're looking to get into competitive gaming?
I think that it really depends on the game because different communities have vastly different requirements. And it also, when you say getting sponsored, it really depends on the organization. I mean, if it's going to be Evil Genius or Complexity, which is a different model from our own, but, they're going to sponsor the top players, and tournament wins matter immensely because it's critical that they have the very best players. So I would say, yeah, your record is critically important. We're more community-based, and, although record is important, there are also other factors that we consider that are important. Now, I want to point out that doesn't mean that Complexity or Evil Geniuses just look at record. I mean, they have a culture in their organizations too, and they have to be a good fit. I think the most important thing any player can do is win. That is the critical thing that needs to happen. To give any other advice is to be very short-sighted, meaning that you can find organizations that may spend money on you because they're trying to break in or, they have built a relationship with you. But long-term, what is your best asset? It's, and you can quote me on this very carefully, sustained superior performance. That's what will get you sponsored. And if you can do that and represent the brand that has decided to sponsor you, you're off to a really good start.
Sounds like really good advice. We actually did have a question about VVV's current placings come in. We had posted a topic on the VVV Gaming forums about potential questions that the community wanted you to answer. And one of them had stated they felt it had been a while since a VVV team or player had achieved a top 4 placing at an MLG event. I mean, the last time that I can remember would be Super Smash Bros. Brawl, I think back in DC of last year. They wanted to know, is this the standard that VVV is still trying to reach, top 4, with its sponsored teams and players? And are there more drastic changes imminent if results do not come in the future? Or is VVV interested in possibly accomplishing something else entirely?
That's a really great question. We are going to do some changes after Columbus, primarily in the areas of Halo and Call of Duty. In StarCraft, I mean, as we talked about earlier in the show, we have this enormous opportunity to have Korean players come to play at Major League Gaming. Based on their experience and the level that they play at, it would be unrealistic to expect a top 4 from any of our players. Possibly not many U.S. players as a whole could break into that top 4. That's not to say that I don't expect we'll have 1 or 2, but it definitely changes the playing field a little bit. So it really depends on the title. Halo, as most everybody knows, Halo teams tend to expect a lot. And I think it's because Major League Gaming started out with these types of contracts, and the return from Halo never has seemed awfully significant. But we are going to change the way we sponsor teams to bring it a little bit closer in line to what Complexity and EG does. Not that we're going to change our model per se, but we are going to put a performance requirement on how sponsorships are doled out, mostly because I do think going forward we are so focused on StarCraft and all our opportunities there that we haven't given Call of Duty, as an example, probably enough analysis. And primarily that's because Dallas had a really low attendance. I think here, come Columbus, we're going to look a lot closer. And, there are some teams that don't really have sponsors that are in the top 6, and then we may take a look at those. Something similar with Halo. We can do that there as well. But as far as top 4, if things don't get better, I mean, you really have to look at the competitive landscape and say, what are the odds and what is the cost and what is the value of having that top 4 team or player. So we haven't changed our model. We're not trying to do something entirely else. We want to get good results. But, we've only had 1 event this season. And, I'm enormously amazed at how much StarCraft 2 is just exploded on scene. It is the biggest thing to happen in North American gaming, and I think it's safe to say ever. And because of that, we have to spend our primary focus and time there, especially since we have 3 players who are going to be going full-time StarCraft.
Hey there, Jerry. I would just like to start off by saying congratulations. You've done well so far. I would like to personally say that I didn't know all that about you, so I'm glad to know more about you every single day. I've been here 7 months, and it's been great so far. but you were talking about the Koreans coming in and impacting MLG, basically. So I would like to know, what are your feelings on the so-called bridge from the level of Koreans and non-Koreans? And do you feel that a Korean will win MLG Columbus?
That's a good question. The short answer is yes, I do. I do believe that they will win, but one very important thing about competition, anything can happen. So many things affect a player's performance. And we just don't know until that day, until that game. But they certainly come in, and I think I'm not the only person who expects them to do well, but I would love to see one of the U.S. players do really well. But at the same time, I think everyone should be excited. As I said earlier in the show, this is an awesome opportunity for all of us to watch StarCraft with Korean players in it. And I think this is amazing for spectators. It is exactly what Major League Gaming should have done, as I said before. I think it's great, and I'm again going to say, I really do think a Korean will win. And I don't think that's bad, just to make that clear.
Since all three of us will be in attendance at Columbus, I'm really looking forward to seeing that in person. I'd have to say, in my opinion, StarCraft 2 is by far the single greatest thing that MLG has added to the circuit since possibly their even inception. I think that MLG has made significant leaps and bounds in terms of improving their events over the last couple of years. Jerry, what more would you like to see from them? Say the next year, the next 5 years, 10 years? What are your thoughts?
Well, I feel like Sundance has done a lot of what we asked. I can go through the list. We asked for seats, we got them. We asked for main stages for all games, we got them. We asked for better streams in StarCraft. We're getting 2. Right now, it's hard to think about what else we need. I am confident they're going to fix their stream problems that they had in Dallas. So I think that we need a good, solid year, and probably what they'll have to take a look at next is probably their point system and seeding. I think somewhere down the road, that's going to have to be adjusted. I think it's an artificial fix to problem with sponsors, and I think it needs to go away. But I don't think there's a rush to fix it. But I definitely think that needs a closer examination. And, one other thing that I think would be great is if Gears of War from beta to release stays fairly similar, tightening up a few things, adding Gears of War 3 for 2012 would be an excellent idea. It would round out Major League Gaming in such a way that they would, in my humble opinion, dominate everything that goes on in North America, hitting major communities. I'd love to see some fighting added, whether that's in Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter. And I understand with Street Fighter they've tried, but I would love to see those added to the events. But I am confident that they're working the best they can to get these things. And in case we doubted them, we really have to look at what they've done. As you mentioned in the introduction to me, I wrote an open letter. We can connect that open letter to direct results. They made changes based on our request. That in itself, those actions to me speak very loudly. And I think they're definitely, the ship is pointed in the right direction.
You had just mentioned Gears of War, fighting games, things of that nature. Got almost like a little two-part question for you here. If you were to choose one game, one genre that has not appeared on the MLG circuit that you would like to see, that if you were to give MLG some advice of what to go after, what game or genre would that be? And is there any game that has been on the circuit in the past or something that has not appeared on the circuit that you would not like to see them go into?
That is an interesting question because I think at times there is some question as to the methodology that they use to evaluate new titles and decide whether they should be on the circuit or not. And Killer KC, Nexi are great, amazing people, and they get competitive gaming. And then the community has their own voices. But at times I feel the community voice gets dominated by the players who are number one. And what we miss in all of this is the spectator's voice. What are the spectators saying about watching the game? And if anybody's ever been to a football game, I'm sure if we asked the football players if they want to all sit on the sideline for a television timeout, they would say no. But you need that for sponsors. Many things players may not like, but the business demands it. In competitive gaming, I think the business of increasing fans and generating those views sometimes has to take precedence over what players want. So I don't want to say that there's a game they should pick up outside of what I've already said about Gears of War, but I think they should think a lot more about the spectator's experience. That would be my piece of advice in whatever genre or game they look at.
Let's take a quick break from MLG and move over to one of the other big competitive gaming organizations out there, the WCG. We're talking about game selection, things of that nature. What are your feelings on the current state of the World Cyber Games and their 2011 game selection? Are they headed in the right direction right now under their new management?
The new North American management? I mean, I don't know. It's a tough thing to say. I'm disappointed there's no North American FIFA. I think that's horrible. I'm excited that they added Crossfire. That's awesome. League of Legends is there. Good for Riot. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be honest. I feel this is a very Asian-focused lineup of games, and I think we're going to see strong performances there. So I'm not as thrilled as I've been in the past with their choices, but again, I get the business of the World Cyber Games, and they do what they have to do based on where they're going to hold their grand finals. So they're going to do fine.
Staying on the same subject of World Cyber Games, which countries do you think will finish with top medal counts first, second, third when the World Cyber Games Grand Finals does return to South Korea later this year?
Oh, I think that's pretty much going to be South Korea. I mean, South Korea is going to dominate the World Cyber Games like they always do. I would look for a strong showing from China, and since Tekken is there, Japan, and possibly Germany, because they will have FIFA. But really, it's going to be, this is a very Asian-centric, and remember that when you think about the medal count, you don't count the promotional games. So I'm not really looking at the promotional titles, but just looking at the core set of titles, I'm going to go with South Korea dominates, China, then Japan or Germany. That's how I think it's going to end up.
Jerry, on to something else that was a big issue when I joined 7 months ago and still seems to be a pressing issue now. What are your thoughts on the importance of social media such as Twitter and Facebook? I mean, why should competitive gamers care? And what do you think are some steps that everyone can take that's new to social media to be successful?
You know, we talk about that a lot on this show, but there is something that I don't think I say. And today, marketers, people who have marketing budgets to market products and services, if they look at any area to get a quick gauge, right? Hey, you should look at competitive gaming. They're going to go to the internet. There's no books on competitive gaming that are going to help them understand North America. They need to gauge what is going on in that space. And they're going to go to social media. They're going to look on Twitter. They're going to look on Facebook. Is it important? It is the single most important thing that we have going for us. If you love competitive gaming, you should be talking about it on Twitter and Facebook. If you don't, then people who have marketing dollars can't give that money to Major League Gaming or organizations like Evil Genius, Complexity, VV Gaming. It is important to use social media because the only way somebody who is at Coca-Cola or McDonald's knows about competitive gaming is by what they see on Facebook and Twitter. Even if Major League Gaming comes in with a brilliant presentation with a bunch of numbers, they're still going to have to verify what Major League Gaming is pitching to them. And there isn't a book, there isn't one single source with information. They can go and get game data. This is how much games released. But they're going to need to look on Facebook and Twitter to figure out what is being discussed. I think it's really critical.
Since, Roar, that you just brought up Twitter and Facebook, Jerry, VVV personally just launched its live stream, another form of media that we are making our way into. Can you give me the eventual plans for where that media content is headed?
It is all about streaming. I mean, the goal one day is for people to, just like you have your favorite television program, you want people to have their favorite esports coverage. That's what you want. And you want to give them options. Just like we have a Monday Night Football, you maybe want your Wednesday Night StarCraft. And you want it consistent, and you want to be able to talk about it on Thursday. We need consistent quality programming. And right now we have 9 million people streaming. So like many things, you have a lot of people creating content, but quality control is an issue. So I think we need to get quality programming. I think what DJ Wheat does is good. I think Major League Gaming streaming is good, but we need leagues that stream, or we need teams to cover their players consistently, and many do, but it needs to be consistent. I think we need to have something that allows players to do exactly that. And I mean, that's what we're going to go for. And ideally, I'd like to have 24 hours of content on our Justin TV channel. That would be the eventual goal, so that it is a literal channel in the digital world. So if you want VVV Gaming players, news, commercials, sponsor information, eventually it'll come to our Justin TV channel. So in short, we have big plans for it.
Sounds very cool. On the subject of big plans, lofty plans, one of the questions I had seen that was posted in our forums that I thought was a really interesting subject, posted by VVV Enmity, he had said, I personally would love to see VVV Gaming start something along the lines of a LAN network for Gears or some other game. Is there any chance that VVV Gaming will do something like this in the future? Do you have any plans for this down the line?
I think the LAN network is a very unique situation. I mean, here we have a father who, in short, has done something for his son. It's a quick, smart hit, but I don't know if that fits VVV Gaming situation. You know, building a LAN center is, I don't want to run a LAN center. I'll just put it like that. That's not the business that I am passionate about. But we are going to do something where we partner with local LAN centers. There are going to be official VVV Gaming LAN centers. Expect an announcement later this week as we select the first one. It'll either be LAN centers or events. And the key to that is making sure that we have organizers in various regions who can put together certain games and events. And I'll also be working very closely in mentoring some of our StarCraft players. And I don't want to say too much about that right now. But something like a LAN center or the LAN network, no. Something like regular events like the LAN network holds, yes. We will partner with people to do that. I can't say much yet, but there'll be an announcement coming later this week about one such event. And then there will be more in various regions as we move forward.
Cool plans there, Jerry. I'm really looking forward to seeing that announcement. Even I don't know what he's talking about, guys. Let's move back over towards the MLG side of things. Another question that was asked from a member of our community, VVV Rapture. He had asked, do you think that we will eventually see another league rise up in the future to compete with MLG here in North America? And is an MLG quote-unquote monopoly of North American competitive gaming a good thing?
God, I hope not. Major League Gaming is listening to its audience. Major League Gaming has a lot of money invested in it. I think if it fails, it would be horrible. For better or worse, as I've demonstrated, you can be critical of an organization, but once that organization starts to do the right thing, you have to be supportive when it does. And right now, I think Major League Gaming is doing the right things, and it's not about whether or not Sundance and I are friends or enemies. I'm not in high school. It's not, I like you, I don't like you. It's about business decisions, whether one agrees or disagrees. I didn't agree with the combines. I spoke my mind. I thought people should have seats. I spoke my mind. Whether or not that offended anyone or MLG didn't like it was not important to me. Sundance reached out. He made many important changes from last season to this season. I don't need another league. So I hope not. I don't expect to. And this idea of a monopoly, I don't want to get into complex economic theory right now, but the fear of a monopoly, which is sort of an older model, you know, it's something of when it comes to limited resources. We live in a knowledge economy now, and there's something called new growth theory. And in certain cases, having centralized large organizations is really important. So if anybody ever wants to discuss monopolies and new growth theory, I'll gladly do that. But in short, yes, I do believe Major League Gaming being the sort of king of the hill right now is a good thing. And if that doesn't pan out, you know, then we start over again. But I would sure hate to see it fail. So yes, I do believe the current state of Major League Gaming is very good for us.
You had mentioned during that answer that you had been critical of Major League Gaming at points. And I want to move into something else that you have been critical on very much so in the past. Although you did say here during this interview that you would like to see Gears back on the MLG circuit. Some people have asked why you hate the MLG Gears community. I personally have seen you kind of fan the flames of some of the Gears kids on Twitter that are obsessed with calling themselves former MLG pros. But why is it? Why do you have these feelings? Why do you feel this way about the Gears community?
Obviously, I don't hate the Gears of War community. I mean, to be clear, part of the reason that I fan these flames, as you say, is because I really want them to start to think about pulling in a greater audience. Do I think this former Gears of War pro is good for competitive gaming? Not at all. No one cares you're a former Gears of War pro. Get over yourself. That doesn't mean that there aren't good things you can do, creating content, generating hype, putting out guides. Anything that builds community, I think, is good. If Gears of War ends up back on the MLG Pro circuit, we will sponsor a team, and it'll be, a full sponsorship based on our new sponsorship packages that we're going to be announcing here later. But I would never spend time with this former Gears of War pro thing. I mean, I think it sets a precedence that I'm better than you, and we don't need that right now. We need a lot of passion for the game, and to be honest, I'm not going to change their mind. They're going to call themselves former Gears of War pros. They're going to react insecurely to everything I say. It's sort of like, I feel like these people are carrying some kind of banner that they're personally going to save Gears of War, right? Let's have a MLG pro player coalition. At the end of the day, I just think those people need to speak to average gamers a lot more and not sort of set themselves apart like they're a special group, because they're really not a special group. And one other thing happened that was really significant. And that was, in the last 2 years, I got to meet the Brawl community and I got to meet the StarCraft community. And those two communities, in conjunction with Rhythm Gaming community, those three so destroy anything the Gears of War community has done. That group of players needs to look to StarCraft, look to Brawl. You want energy? Look to Brawl. You want camaraderie? Look to Rhythm Gaming. You want professionalism and respect for one another? You look to StarCraft 2. So instead of stamping former Gears of War Pro on your Twitter and your bio and your Epic forum SIG and everywhere you go, you look at how StarCraft does it. Look at how Brawl creates energy. That's where you need to look. So am I interested in Gears of War? I love Gears of War. But as far as like if I make a tweet attacking something, and it starts to create all these flames, if you are that sensitive about a topic, it should also be an indicator to you, something's wrong here. Why am I reacting so negatively to this? So, to whoever asked that question, I don't hate Gears of War. We will support Gears of War. I love our Gears of War community inside VV Gaming. But one thing, now that you asked me that question, I will say, I saw somebody tweet that I now hate the community that made VVV who it was. I was so shocked by that comment that I had to pause for a second and think, wait a minute, when we started Gears of War, VVV Gaming, it was never the Gears of War community who was on our side. From day one, it was LGD who was going to take everything. After that, the Gears of War community, we were only a one-trick pony. We only had VV Vision. Once Vision's gone, VV's going to be nothing. So that community wasn't very friendly from the beginning. So whoever thinks I owe them something, you need to do a little history check there. Because if I owe anything to anyone, it's the players and the staff and the community of VVV Gaming that helped build this, not the greater Gears of War community.
You know, Jerry, that's great to hear. I love when anyone praises the StarCraft 2 community, and I couldn't say much more about them. They're a great community. And one of our questions that was brought up was, how do you feel about the competitors of VVV, such as EG, Complexity, Fnatic, and other large organizations? And what are your relationships to their owners, such as Sir Scoots from EG?
Wow, what a good question. First of all, I don't see them as competitors. I think that we're all in this together. We'll take Sir Scoots and EG, for example. I mean, they are kind of the New York Yankees of PC gaming. They've always had the top players. You can't take that history away from them. That's who they are. They have great relationships with sponsors, and they've done a lot to build that brand. Complexity, I mean, I think everybody can remember the Jason Lake days and the screaming videos, and now Alex Conroy's there, and he tried to take Titan from us, and he threatened us with lawsuits and all this other crap, and Titan will never be able to play in any league, and I think he forgot who he was speaking to. Like, I'm not a child, and when you get treated that way, it kind of does leave a bad taste in your mouth. Like, who do you think you're talking to, right? Like, let me pack you lunch and give you 50 cents. Go call your dad and tell me about a real man. Don't fucking come to my house and tell me you're going to sue me, right? It doesn't work that way. So, I mean, it's kind of like one of those, don't be a retard. Like, Complexity is kind of still a brand that's out there and people are familiar with it. Don't ruin it with stupidity. I don't see us as competitors. I mean, players need organizations to spend money on them and help them grow as marketers, as professionals. I think EG knows how to do that and tries. I think Sir Scoots is an enormously savvy marketing guy. He's very technical. He understands the value of streaming. He knows how to protect his brand identity. I think he's a pit bull when it comes to that. He's going to quote me on Twitter later, I bet. But that's good. I mean, EG would want the people in EG to defend the brand the way Sir Scoots does. So, I really don't talk to Fnatic or SK Gaming. I'm less interested in Europe because, that's not the market I want to develop. I want to develop what we're doing here in the States and in North America. But I don't see them as competitors. I think we've proven already that we can grow our community without having to be number one. And I think even in our conversations with Sir Scoots, he said, I bet at times you wish you could have some of the players we do. And I can tell you, I wish that we had, this community you do. And I think that's good for everybody. So do I see them as competitors? No. I see them as peers. It's going to be somebody's going to be there. Don't compare yourself to SK Gaming. They've been around for 10 years. I get that. But, we're here too, and we count, we matter. So I see them as peers. We're all now sitting at the same table. And we all influence a great number of gamers and I think have good ideas and represent our sponsors and develop our players and do a lot of things. So at the end of the day, I don't really see them as competitors.
You had just mentioned sponsors in this answer. And another question that was brought up was the question of what is the first thing you look at when you're being approached or when you're confronting a potential sponsor or client for VVV Gaming? Things like benefits, publicity, marketing, etc. What would be the first things that you personally look at?
3 things. I would say 1, the people. It's got to be people that I enjoy working with. People are critical. An organization is made up of its people. That's what differentiates itself from another. People's number 1. 2, their Rolodex. Can they help us build our network and can they help us make good connections? And 3, their product. Is their product the kind of product that I know the community is going to stand behind? Or is their product something that, it's going to be obvious we're just accepting money and we can't in good faith? I mean, sponsorship should not be an organization's major source of revenue. It's critical that we're all evolving away from a pure sponsorship model or an 80-20 sponsorship model. And we have to be working much more toward a 50-50. So sponsors are less important to me than the trial and error that we go through all the time, trying to figure out ways to monetize what we do and create packages we can bundle and things that we can put together that will draw, either an audience or maybe get advertising. But, advertising sponsors only go so far. A critical piece, don't get me wrong. But, I think we all have a lot of work to still figure out what other sources of revenue we can generate. For us, we do really good with our branded merchandise because we have a large community and that has been beneficial to us. But, there's still a lot of stuff that we have yet to explore. I'm sure we'll see streaming ads and all kinds of other things. But specifically to what you asked, the people, the Rolodex, and then, number 3, the quality of the product. Those are 3 things I look at.
That answer definitely makes sense when you currently look at the sponsors that VVV Gaming has. It makes complete sense. In regards to VVV Gaming as a whole, I'd love to know, what is your current opinion on our state, the state of VVV Gaming? What are your thoughts as to where we are currently? How would you rate the current teams that we have? And is there any game or genre that you'd like to pick up a player team in for the future?
That's a tough one because I think we're doing amazing. We have the most site traffic we've ever had. We're offering the most media we've ever offered. We have top quality players on all games. And we're evolving every day. We're doing new things. So I think we're in an amazing place. But it's not over. This is a continuously changing landscape, and we're always evolving. To the question you asked earlier, could we have teams that place better? Yeah, I think that's a fair critique. But that's not critical to our model. It may be critical to EG's model, but it's not critical to ours. So I think at the end of the day, for where we want to go and what we're trying to do, we're in a good spot. I love our staff. They do an amazing amount of work. I have less time than I did before to do certain VV things, and people have picked up the pieces that would normally have fallen to the wayside, and in the end, it's been a really great balance. So I can't think of anything. Oh, I know what. Our YouTube channel. I think our YouTube channel needed a major overhaul. And then we got one hacked, and then we got one banned. And we're working on getting it back. And the YouTube channel really kind of disappoints me. But Justin TV will kind of be the new place where we're going to be putting a lot of stuff, and we're going to have content. So YouTube kind of becomes less important. But I think we could do better there. What else do I think? I think we're going to be more aggressive in building partnerships over the next year, because we've had to do a lot of internal work. And I mean, bringing StarCraft 2 on was not easy. There was a lot to learn. I mean, thankfully people like Roar and the community made it very simple, but it still took work because we'd had zero experience in StarCraft at all. So I mean, that was a lot of thinking and talking and building relationships and getting each other's trust, and slowly helping the division understand how to market themselves, players understand how to build their own brand, getting them all on Mumble, doing a lot of things that, we're going to take time, because you have to build that level of trust and relationship. So overall, I feel really great about VVV. I think we are in an amazing place. So, and if anybody feels otherwise, I'd love to hear it,
Jerry, with me being so new to the community and having learned so much already from you, I would like to know, what are your plans and goals in the upcoming years for VVV Gaming?
I think our primary goal remains unchanged, and that's developing competitive gaming fans and bringing those competitive gamers who are not fully immersed in the scene the experience that will help them become fans of competitive gaming, to help them start to understand what makes a competitive game, why we choose one game over another when they make these decisions. That's still central to what we do. I think StarCraft brings a unique situation, and that is we have to focus on those players that want to go StarCraft full time and walk through a very serious process of evaluating their finances, how they build their own brand, their practice schedule. They're making a life decision here, and it's our job to be there. So part of our goals have to be to see those players become successful, benchmark their progress, and help them achieve their personal goals. That's critical to what we do. Also, I think we have to continue to grow our media. As I said, we've got big plans for Justin TV. And we also are going to do more of our own content. We'll also probably look at a new website. It's that time again to reinvent our website and move that forward. So, I mean, we have a lot of things going on, to make a long story short, and we really want to keep pushing this forward. But the goals are going to be growing the fan base, continuing to do what we do well, hopefully really increase our focus on StarCraft, generate more media, quality media, not just random stuff, but really quality media, building relationships, like I said before, where we have more partners and we do things with other organizations, possibly partner with sites and run some of our own online tournaments and other things. And then finally, I think we always have to stay true to our mission statement, which is very important. Our mission statement is very clear that we believe that everyone that has a passion for competitive gaming should be a part of it, and that they need an engaging community and support and people to share their passion with. Right? Our motto is entertain, educate, dominate. That's what we do. And I think with our media, with our development of players, and with the fact that we get awesome results, and I'll agree to that earlier question, we could do better in some of these areas when it comes to MLG, but we can't do it all. But you'll see changes after Columbus to get us closer to the domination that I know some of our fans want to see. So that's what we're going to do for next year.
Jerry, I really want to thank you for all the time and effort you have put forth, not only to VV Gaming, but of course also to answering all these questions that the community has asked this week on this show. To wrap this up, I really want to know, we'll be seeing you in Columbus, seeing you at a couple more stops on the MLG tour this year. Any gaming events in 2011 that you personally are looking forward to more than others? Why? And anything else that you're planning to do for 2011 that we might not know about?
I am looking forward to Columbus. I'm looking forward to Raleigh. But I think something that may surprise a lot of people, because I haven't gone to one yet, I can't wait to go to Devastation this year. I really want to meet the fighting community. I want to meet Jedi Rob in person. Sir Scoots is involved in helping produce the stream, and I think Marcus DJ Wheat is going to be helping out again too. I don't know for sure, but I know Sir Scoots is involved for sure. And I look forward to Devastation. So I think that's going to be a real important event. But Columbus will be large with a lot of. I feel like in many ways Columbus is the first MLG event this season, because Call of Duty will have a better shake even with the PSN problems. And Raleigh's always great. I'm optimistic that we might see a little Gears of War action in Raleigh, so I look forward to that. But I would say the Devastation is probably what people don't know that I'm attending this year.
Jerry, once again, thank you so much for being so open and honest with the listeners. We do it for all the other guests, so why not you? Any shout-outs before we close this out?
Yeah, actually, I got a lot of shout-outs. I want to give a shout-out to you for your 2 years of hard work, for producing the show, for being the co-host, for being consistent. A shout-out to Blazik for writing articles every week. A shout-out to Doomhammer, because he has literally been invaluable. He is work on demand. Never complaining, never pushing back, never late. Just an amazing, amazing person. I want to give a shout-out to Titan, Murder, and Time for their courage, for what they're undertaking, for their trust. I want to give a shout-out to staff. There's too many to list. Welcome back, Volcom. Thank you for taking applications back under your wing. I want to give a shout-out to the Rift Guild, because they have entertained me, as well as developing one of the top guilds, and they are in autopilot. They know what they're doing. I want to give a shout-out also to our applicants and our community members, both, for respecting our brand, for being active on social media. Everything you do is watched and it matters. And it is impossible to do this without the community support. So, although I am lucky to work with so many great people, it should be important to note that it would be impossible for us to do what we do without them. And last, but certainly not least, I have to thank our sponsors. I want to make it clear that my relationship with Kimram and SteelSeries, it has been an amazing journey. We are thankful to have the kind of quality and expertise that they bring to competitive gaming. I look forward to working with Keith at Gamer Grub, and obviously Control Freak is always doing things for the community. Oh, and expect more from Music Skins, and obviously, Custom Ink is just a workhorse, doing everything we need when we need it, and always listening to 9 million product ideas that never actually get made, but always there for us every time. So, our sponsors are critical, and our partners. So, I would be amiss if I didn't include them. I'm eternally grateful for their knowledge, their wisdom, and their advice.
As always, thank you so much for tuning in to VV Gaming's The Losers Bracket podcast. Huge thank you, as Jerry had just mentioned at the end of his interview, to the VV Gaming sponsors, SteelSeries, Gamer Grub, Control Freak, MusicSkins.com, GamerLogos.net, and Custom Ink. Another huge shout out to the VV Gaming community and the entire competitive gaming community. Your feedback, support, and your questions for the LordJerith interview are all highly, highly appreciated. Thank you so much. Be sure to stop by our podcast homepage. The website is vvgaming.podbean.com. Additionally, you can also subscribe to VV Gaming on iTunes. Just search for us. Just type in VV Gaming. We'll pop right up. That way you can follow both of our shows, Smash Brothers Podcast, Directional Influence, and, of course, the show you're listening to currently, The Losers Bracket. You can email us at the email address, thelosersbracket@vvv-gaming.com. Follow us over on Twitter. Respond to our tweets. Give us feedback that way. The name of our Twitter account is simply Losers Bracket. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. We look forward to hearing your feedback as we move closer towards MLG Columbus. You'll have a wonderful week, and we'll see you back here soon. Take care.